What's up, folks, and welcome to Indie Ramble. So, I got a 3D platformer for you today, and anybody who knows me knows that this is a genre I like quite a bit. We don't get a ton of these, so I'm always very interested when one of them comes out. And so, yeah, this is Trifox, and it's a new release from a studio in Belgium, actually, that's got a couple of things to their credit. And I've actually finished this. It's not a super long game. It's not super short either, but I've actually gotten through the whole thing. And that's kind of good because it's going to allow me to show you sort of the one unique selling point of this. So there is a story in this game. It's all told through imagery in like little cutscenes with no actual dialogue in them. But a bunch of stuff is happening, the world is ending, but your fox is ticked off because he lost his TV remote. That's apparently it. I don't know. It doesn't mean too much, but here's what's cool about it. So you're gonna have, there's 12 main levels in this that include boss fights, plus a major fight at the end, a major last level, which I won't spoil because some cool things happen in that. But the cool selling point of this game is this area here. So you have 3 different classes that you can play as in this, hence the name Trifox. And as you play through, you'll get money from killing enemies and destroying objects, and you can spend that money to buy all of these different types of weapons and special abilities related to each of the 3 classes. And what's cool is that you can choose to mix and match these to create whatever kind of loadout you want. These abilities vary quite a bit. Some of them are defensive, some of them are offensive, and every class also has a special movement skill as well. And you can actually assign these to any of the trigger buttons. So you can lay your class out exactly as you want. You can see up in the right there how I've got things laid out now. I've kind of got a mix between all 3 of the different classes. This is the loadout that I like the most, but there are a ton of different ways to play through this depending on your preferences. Personally, I think some of these abilities are a little unbalanced, but that's just my subjective opinion as well. And if you don't like something, you can do different things. As you can see here, these are the things that I'm testing out here. There's a crazy amount of variance in this, and I think this is this game's biggest strength, is the really cool mix and match type of thing you can do with the different classes in this. In terms of the rest of it, it's not a bad 3D platformer, but honestly, it's definitely not my favorite of the ones that have come out lately. So I'm going to jump into a level here with a decent amount of combat and other things to show you this. So the way this game works is it has a fixed camera, but it plays like a pseudo twin stick game. So you move around with the left stick and you can fire your different weapons off, but you can get more precise control over the direction you're facing by using the right stick, as you can see here. I am playing on the Xbox Series X, by the way. This is out on everything, but it's one of those games where you definitely want a controller. But as you can see, you actually have a somewhat granular control over your movement that and your aiming that allows you to sort of run and gun, which you're going to need to in numerous places in this, especially the boss fights. And as you go along, you use your different abilities and weapons here, and the base attacks, like for example this minigun thing, don't take any resources to utilize, so you can just spam that. Anything that's higher level, that's basically above a sort of base weapon ability, is going to take energy, as you can see there from the blue bar on the left. When your energy gets low, as well as your health, there are vial pickups you can get that will restore them, but I find the energy restores very, very quickly, and it's very rare that I actually needed the assistance of one of those vials in order to get by. So, you know, that's something to keep in mind. And you're basically going to go through these different levels. The levels do vary a fair bit. There are some that are more platform heavy. There are some that are more combat arena heavy. As I said, there are some boss fights in this. The bosses, in terms of both appearance and what you have to do to beat them, varies a lot. There's definitely a lot of new things to see and do in this game. The problem that I've got, honestly, to a certain degree, is the fixed camera, and not so much that it is a fixed camera, but the way in which it works. You're going to find, and you've seen it there a little bit, that sort of environments sort of bleed into the camera as it sort of makes them sort of fade out as it goes through them, and I find that very distracting at times. Also, I found there are certain combat arena levels where I got extremely frustrated because I kept failing due to the fact that the way the level was designed, the camera actually made it so that it was obscuring where enemies were on the screen. And it made it very hard to see where attacks were coming from and to deal with them as a result of that. Now, there's only a couple of levels, I would say, where that was really a problem, but it was a big problem. Like, it had me getting really, really frustrated at some of those moments there. And indeed, there is going to be a certain amount of grinding required in this, because right now, as I finish the game, I have everything unlocked, so I'm somewhat of a powerhouse here. Not to say that some of the later levels won't still be a challenge, but I am definitely somewhat of a powerhouse right now. And when you don't have all the abilities unlocked, you're going to find some levels particularly difficult. Now, there's no live system in this, and there's somewhat generous checkpointing, so if you do die, you will sort of respawn to the last sort of encounter point. So there isn't a lot of stakes for losing, per se, but you're going to find yourself doing a lot of encounters over and over again because of some frustrating moments that came as a result of you know, either fighting the camera or dealing with large groups of enemies that are very hard to deal with, and crowd control with the lower level abilities that you're going to start with. I do think that's by design to a point, and you can go back and regrind even old levels if you want in order to get more money. So if you want to just grind the easier levels to get yourself fully stacked out before you attack the later ones, that's a valid strategy. And, you know, it really depends how you want to approach the game. And I do think that one of this game's biggest strengths is the variety it gives you in the classes, in the ways in which you can grind out your upgrades. You can play it a lot of different ways. And I do think that's cool. The progression is somewhat linear, obviously. And the story, you know, it's not much of anything. But it's there and it sets things up kind of well. Graphically, it's got kind of this interesting look. This is not a voxel game, but it almost kind of looks that way. The characters look like they're made out of chunks, almost more than anything. I think some people are going to like this look, some people aren't. I don't mind it. I think it's kind of interesting. I think some of the enemies, and in particular your character, the way that his appearance changes, and the way that, depending on the abilities you have, the way those are animated and the way his attacks are animated are all pretty cool. But some of the enemy animations and the like in this are a little bit stiff. There's not a lot of transitions between different states, so you're going to see, you know, somewhat jerky movement in spots like that. Does it detract from the game a lot? No, not really. I mean, it's still, you know, I think this still looks kind of cool. The music in it is somewhat, it's generic and forgettable, but it does the job. You know, and as 3D platformers go, this is a pretty good one. I will say as well that at time of recording this, on the Xbox version, which is version 1.0, there are several achievements in this that are not bugged, but not bugged entirely, but they're glitchy in that you have to do some strange things to like, you have to restart the game to get some of them to start counting again, and there's achievements for beating levels with certain class specializations in that. There's a glitch right now where if you die in one of those levels, they won't unlock. The developers are all aware of this and will be patching it, so it's possible that by the time you've seen this, you're seeing this video, that's already been fixed. But that was my experience. Just a little thing to keep in mind if achievements are important to you. In terms of the overall challenge of the game, I mean, this took me to finish the game and then also go back and get a bunch of the other easier achievements. Took me, I clocked in at about 8 hours, but you could definitely go through this much quicker if you choose not to grind things out, or if you're not going for all the achievements. There is also an achievement in this for doing a completion time of 3 hours or less, which I imagine involves starting a new game when you're fully kitted out and, you know, just ripping through it. So it's not super long, but it can be made longer if you choose to do that. But if you just want to sort of, you know, A to B, one end to the other, then it's going to take you probably about, you know, 3 to 4 hours. So that's not super long. But this also doesn't come with the price tag of some other bigger 3D platformers like the Mario games or, you know, the Little Big Planet, Sackboy Adventures, things like that. So that's worth keeping in mind. I did have fun with this. but there were a lot of frustrations in its design, as I said, particularly with this fixed camera that kind of really started to chap me after a while. You know, at this point, it's looking pretty easy, and because I have all the high-end abilities unlocked, it is compared to how it was. It's going to be a reasonable challenge, but. You know, this is a genre that doesn't get a lot of entries in it. There's not a lot of 3D platformers that come out these days, and a lot of the, you know, some of the ones that do are only okay and not great. But there are some really great ones out there. One of my favorite recent 3D platformers is new Super Lucky's Tale. I think that game is absolutely fantastic. It's indie made. It's got a ton of content, great level design, great characters, you know, a lot of different unlocks and progression things you can do in it. It's a shining gem. You know, we have a Hat in Time from a few years ago that still holds up really well. On the AAA side, you've obviously got things like Mario Odyssey, and Sackboy: A Big Adventure on the PS4 and 5 is a game that I co-op with my girlfriend, and we both thought was truly amazing, better than it had any right to be. And that's coming to the PC soon as I record this too, which is awesome. So there are options out there, but this is not like first-person shooters or, you know, standard 2D platformer type things, where at least in the indie space, they're kind of a dime a dozen these days. And so it's always nice to see another one like this. And I don't think this is bad. It's not my favorite. You know, it's got some frustrations in it. I really think they should have done better with the camera. I don't mind the fixed camera, but I think it makes certain levels really a real pain. So this is one of the first bosses here. This guy's pretty easy, but some of the later ones are definitely a challenge. You know, I think there are some balance issues with some of the different abilities here, but I also think there's more depth there than maybe I'm giving them credit for. I do think that some abilities actually complement others quite well, and if you're not using that combination, ideally, that yeah, you will be making things more challenging for yourself than perhaps you need to as well. So, and indeed, for people who like a challenge and like making, you know, like accomplishing bigger challenges, this does have the option where you could pick an oddly unbalanced class if you wanted and actually be like, yeah, you know what, I'm gonna beat the game like this. So there is a lot of flexibility there, and the customizability that this offers you is really cool. You know, it's something you don't see in a lot of other games, and I think they did a really nice job on that. There are also collectibles as well. There's gems that you can get in the levels, and those are tied to achievements as well. I haven't gotten nearly all of them. Some of them are quite gnarly to find, actually, which is cool. Encourages replay and things like that as well, right? So that's always good as well. So there's things like that. Did I enjoy this? Yeah, I did. I actually think it's pretty cool. We'll go into a different world here, but at the same time, it's if you put, you know, Super Lucky's Tale and you know, a Hat in Time instead. Speaking of indie 3D platformers, if you were to put a Hat in Time or Super Lucky's Tale or things like that in front of me, and as well as this, and say which would you pick, this would probably be my last choice. And that's not to say it's bad. It actually is still pretty good. But I would recommend that, you know, Super Lucky's Tale, I believe, is still on Game Pass, but it's also been cheap on other platforms before, and that is just sublime. That is a beautifully crafted experience. And Hat in Time is an absolute classic at this point. So those are probably those I probably would recommend over this. But if you're into 3D platformers, you know, it's a genre that I still have a lot of fondness for, then you'll probably have a good time with this, and I would recommend picking it up. Just maybe pick it up after you played those other ones. I think maybe do those ones first. But this does have some cool ideas of its own that it's putting down. You know, it's not just it's not a generic platformer by any stretch of the imagination. I think it's putting some cool ideas down, and it's got some cool stuff going on. I hope it does well enough that the devs can make a sequel and maybe refine things a little bit more. You know, I wouldn't say that this feels like a rookie effort, but it does have some elements to it that I think could be improved. and that I think the devs absolutely could with the lessons and experience that this entry would provide. So I hope this does well enough for them to be able to do that, absolutely. But yeah, it is a solid game with some good ideas, but it's just not the most remarkable title I've played. I guess I'll put it that way. So yeah, that is Trifox. It is out now. You can get it all over the place. And again, if you like 3D platformers, I think you'll be happy with this, but there are others that maybe you should get yourself some experience with first, is what I'd say. So thank you very much for watching, everybody. I do appreciate it. If you liked what you saw here, please do all the normal YouTube things, like, subscribe, hit the bell. That all really, really helps. And leave a comment down below. Tell me, you know, how does this look to you? What do you think about it? Does it interest you? You know, what do you think of the 3D platformers, the other ones I talked about? Are there other really good indie ones I missed that you think people should try out? Because I always want to know more. This is a genre I absolutely adore and that I would really love to play more of. And as always, you can follow me over at twitch.tv/pxabstraction for multiple variety streams a week. I cover other indie games over there as well as retro stuff, including things you won't see here on YouTube. We have a fantastic community over there, and I'd love to see you be a part of it. Thanks again, all, and I'll see you on the next Indie Ramble. You folks have yourselves a good one. Take her easy.